Welcome to Open Transport Tycoon Deluxe. This is episode 1, the very first episode. We're going to be building up a small network and expanding it over the next upcoming episodes. I won't be talking through the whole thing, I'll probably just have some music in the background, but whenever there's something interesting happening, I'll do like a little voiceover and explain what's going on. Like right now. I'm kind of panning around, you see. I'm looking for 2 cities to connect to make a small Moneymaker. Basically, you just connect 2 cities that are around 100 tiles apart. And just run a train between them, carrying passengers. Pretty easy way to start. It's not a permanent fixture, but it gives us the money that we need to build the first couple of rails in our network. And I'm going to try to sprinkle in some like tips and tutorials, like this one, right? You can spam bus stations and truck stops all over a city and connect them to your train station by control clicking, and your station coverage expands over the whole city, and it'll help you get more passengers and mail for your train station. And now that we have our Moneymaker set up, I'm just panning around looking for a good place to start our cargo network, and I see these 2 forests stacked up right next to each other, so I think I'm just going to turn this into a time lapse. I just build a station and connect it to a sawmill across the map, and I'll just time lapse this part. There's not much there to explain, I guess, except for the stations, but I'd rather make a tutorial on stations because these have like a lot of different concepts spliced together that would take too much to explain. Okay, bye bye. Alright, now that we have the line completed, we can populate it with some trains. Now I'm going with the SH40 electric train for this. It's insanely good, it has really high acceleration for its speed. I really recommend this train to any new player, or I mean really anybody. It's really good all around, especially in a setting where you're going to have hundreds or maybe even 1,000 trains on a network, which I'm planning to at least attempt on this save. I don't know how far we'll get, because it's a pretty small map, but definitely a couple hundred, maybe 500 or 600 will be the goal. And another small tip, you see I make my trains 3 tiles long, or 5 for the money-making packs line. That's because if you're going to use Signal Gap 2, which I really recommend, it has really good synergy with odd length trains. They stack up a lot closer than even. It's not really something you need to worry about in most cases, but if you're going to pack a line, I really recommend it because it gives you a lot of extra space. And now that we have some other trains running, I'm just going to dismantle the Moneymaker already. I probably didn't need to make it in the first place, but it's pretty good for just some security if we run out of money. And now that the Moneymaker is dismantled, I can start rerouting the mainline tracks to better follow the terrain. You probably saw in the time lapse, those Moneymaker tracks really got in the way. And as for terrain, I know a lot of people like to level terrain, but sometimes it leads to more interesting track layouts if you follow the terrain or go around a mountain, not turn the mountain into like a canyon and just pile drive like 2 lanes straight through. And in my experience, it usually takes less time to draw tracks around terrain or through terrain rather than flattening a whole thing and doing all that. And now that we've got the line reorganized, we can take some time to lay out future plans for the network. And you can see me dotting signs around with some random gibberish on them. Those are basically just markers for the types of junctions I'll be building along that line. We'll get into the terminology of each of those as I build them. And here's another tidbit of information. If you've got a city that's kind of in your way a little, you dot down 4 bus stops and set a little bus line between them. It'll cause your city relations to grow, and over time you can bulldoze houses one by one, get them out of the way. And after inspecting the map a bit, I noticed there's lots of clusters of these farms, which will supply us with grain and livestock, which we can then supply to a factory. So I start laying down plans for that part of the network. And now we've come to our first junction that we're going to be building. I'm going to be converting a small portion of the original line into a side line, and we're going to build it connecting to a main line, which will stretch from the factory all the way to where we built the sawmill station on the other side of the map. We're going to be doing this by building a sideline hub. Now what a sideline is, it's basically how your primary industries connect to the main line. If you think about it like real life roads, you don't exit your house directly onto I-70. You go through, your neighborhood street to a boulevard, and that connects to a highway. That's basically what we're building here. And the terminology that most people use for junctions are hubs. It's basically just, like a highway interchange except with trains instead of cars. And the main feature of a sideline hub is that all the traffic coming from the sideline onto the main line is that sideline traffic has to wait for all trains to clear in that patch of the main line before joining. Now, I'm probably not the best at explaining this, but I can link to a pretty good tutorial by another YouTuber, Lugnuts. He's very good at this game, and he's way better at explaining things than I am. And now that we've got all the directions connected, we can do my favorite part of making hubs, is labeling it SLH, Sideline Hub 01. And now we can fix up the previous line and get it connected correctly. And since we've got the network prepared for holding more trains, I can start working on the farm stations. Now I'm using a huge and egregious use of station spreading here. You see there's 4 farms, or maybe 5 or something, but I just kind of use station spread and combine them all into 2 stations. The thing about farms is they produce 2 separate resources, both of which we need, and it's really hard to balance both of those resources into one station to where they're both being captured. So we're just going to build 2. I recommend that for anybody. Build 1 station for each resource and send the appropriate trains to each. And now that that's hooked up, we have trains entering the stations, and at this point I realize I've got 4 farms hooked into essentially 1 station for each resource. We're going to need a lot more throughput, And this is one thing you'll probably have to think about when making stations for yourself, is that you have to match the station size and throughput to the output of the industries you're connecting it to. Usually for high throughput stations, I don't recommend making a terminus station where you enter and exit on the same size. You can see that I had that originally, and now I'm modifying it into what is called a Ro-Ro station, where trains enter on one side and exit out the other. It's very good for throughput, and is probably necessary in this situation. I think that's a good stopping point. Next episode, we're going to be expanding the network, of course. It's going to go around the whole island. That's it. Bye-bye.